Hey everyone, my name is Chris Lambert, and on this channel we talk Kanye West. And Kanye tweeted the other day for the first time in a few days, and it's Kanye tweeting, so we're going to talk about it. So we're going to just go tweet by tweet and kind of discuss and get into some of the context around it. So first off, we have, I cried at the thought of aborting my firstborn, and everyone was so concerned about me. I'm concerned for the world that feels you shouldn't cry about this subject. I'm sure if you're watching this channel, you're familiar, but it was when Kanye was at his South Carolina rally, he started talking about abortion as a topic, and it led to a conversation where he said that his dad wanted his mom to have an abortion, and his mom didn't. She fought for Kanye, and that's why Kanye's here. Like, the world almost didn't have Kanye West because his dad was too busy, he felt like, to have a kid. And Kanye got emotional when he described being in the same situation. When Kim called him and said she was pregnant, Kanye's first reaction was, we should get an abortion, because he was thinking, I'm this musician, I'm living this life, I'm not ready to be a dad. And now here we are 7 years later, and he has Northwest, and North has been like incredible, right? And for Kanye to have the attachment that he has, it's making me tear up. Every time I talk about this, it makes me tear up. For him, I cry at everything though, but for him to have the attachment that he has to North, and then think about not having her and it would be his fault, of course that's going to make, I think, most parents emotional and have them like cry. And just the fact that he's giving this speech in front of everyone, there's a lot of emotion going. Like, yeah, I get why he's upset, that him crying has upset so many people, right? Because regardless of the talk of, is this a manic episode? Is this bipolar? Like, he was crying. This has to be this. It has to be that. Like, crying in and of itself isn't a sign of mental unhealthiness, right? Especially with that topic and that subject matter. And I just think it goes to show, like, the crude ways in which not only do we not understand mental health at this point and how to talk about it in the media and in the public, but the ways in which, like, Kanye still is misunderstood or gets put, like, pigeonholed for something that he does, and that's the narrative on it, and it can't possibly be anything else. Whether that's crying over the thought of, like, not having his daughter because of an action he would have demanded from his wife, like, versus, I don't know, crying because he's upset that, like, Nike hasn't returned a call. Like, that might be a little bit more understandable, being like, he's crying about that versus his daughter. Then we have this. There's the tactic of 4Ds: distract, discredit, dismiss, to destroy. I am quite all right. Take a second and think about what is being projected here. So, I mean, it's a follow-up directly to this, right? So the idea that Kanye cries over this and the media seems to be distracting, discrediting, dismissing, and with the goal of destroying Kanye. He had talked about Bill Cosby, and that Bill Cosby had attempted to buy NBC, and the result was Cosby then ends up in jail. And he had talked about Michael Jackson, and that Michael Jackson had called out the CEO of Sony Music for being racist, and then Michael Jackson dies. I feel like people get upset that that I talk about this, but I want to put those things just in the context of Cosby tried to buy NBC in 1993, and the first accusation against him didn't really manifest until like 2005, 2006, when he settled with this woman who had first, brought him to court for drugging her. And Cosby admitted in depositions to buying Quaaludes to use on women, but he just maintained that it was consensual, that they were aware he was using the Quaaludes. But he settled with her, and it wasn't until 2014 that way more allegations started up, and that it turned out as a pattern of behavior over the course of decades. So even though Cosby had tried to buy NBC, it was like 20 years between that and his eventual, like, fall from the limelight and fall from grace. And same thing with Michael Jackson. He called out the CEO of Sony Music very publicly in 2002. And while he didn't have an album come out after that, and you could, I guess make the case that it's in the aftermath of that things led to Jackson's eventual like pain medication dependency and passing away in 2009. It was still 7 years between like this and that. So I think some people like myself can get pedantic over accusations in that way of like trying to make the connection. But I think the point that Kanye would be making is just like you see that somebody powerful, like a black man that has power, calls out those that are still stifling him. And what happens is an eventual decline to where they lose power and then this shit befalls them. So even if it's not an immediate A then B, but an A then years pass to Z, there's still some kind of backlash. There's still some type of consequence that comes into effect that eventually causes the demise of these people, which is the destruction part of these 4Ds, right? That it's this eventual and gradual thing, and that Kanye feels like he's in a place where he's calling out these people that they're trying to destroy him. He's risking his life. He keeps saying that, and he has been saying that whenever he speaks out about these topics, it's not just that he's risking his lifestyle, right? And the money that he can get and all of that, but really risking his life. So he says, I'm quite all right, which I think gets back to his mental health and mental states. Take a second and think about what is being projected here. And just the idea that because he cried, people are calling him crazy. And often if somebody has any kind of mental issue, whenever they speak up about something, they're just shot down as crazy. It's the easiest way to discredit somebody. It's the easiest way to dismiss somebody. And the fact that Kanye is saying, I'm saying all this stuff, but yet like this is all anybody's talking about. Like, think about this for a second. I tried looking up the tactic of the 4Ds, and I couldn't really. And again, I'm somebody that gets pedantic. It gets very specific. So I get that Kanye is probably extrapolating, but I wanted to see if there was something specific that it came from, right? And I couldn't find really that much. There's like Gary Vaynerchuk has the 4Ds of entrepreneurship, which feels very different than what Kanye's talking about. And then you can see that the Kremlin would be proud of Trump's propaganda playbook. It's not me trying to get political. It's just the result, right? Because the 4Ds, I guess, over the last number of years have become associated with disinformation campaigns from Russia. And you can see like Disinfo Bingo, the 4Ds of disinformation, Anatomy of an Info War, how Russia's propaganda machine, the EU battle strategy against fake news, fighting the 4Ds. And you can see right here, the 4Ds are distort, distract, dismiss, dismay, which gets more into if you're accused of something, the first thing you need to do is distort from it, then distract from it, then dismiss it, and then be dismayed by it. I think what kicked this off was the flight that got shot down by Russian soldiers, and Russia's response was these 4Ds. And same thing with any of the accusations from the broader political stuff that has been going on. It's just they go back to the 4Ds. And you can see here again, if you type in what Kanye said, distract, discredit, dismay, dismiss, destroy, you get Kanye's mention, the Complex article about it, Trump leans on 10 Ds of opposition tactics. And then another Kanye article, Trump's Ds, deny, discredit, discount, deflect, delay, deceive. And then Lipstick Alley, dismiss, discredit, demonize, destroy, which is one I didn't check out. Well, let's look at this real fast. So I saw like down here that there was chapter 35 responding to counterattacks. And you can see that in this, it's saying how to respond to opposition tactics, which Kanye had been talking about, like these are the opposition tactics being used against him, right? And this is saying that what are the 10 Ds? So they deflect, they delay, they deny, they discount, deceive, divide, dulcify, discredit, destroy, deal. And I think Kanye may be seeing the 10 Ds and reducing it to 4, or just because he's taking 4 of them, saying there's a tactic of the 4 Ds. But then there's here, dismiss, discredit, demonize, destroy. Yo, this dude Byron Allen was on the Breakfast Club this morning and he was fire. He's a billionaire. This is starting to make sense. But of course, the media, Forbes magazine, don't say ish about him. Stay woke. He said this is what white folk with a lot of power in high places like to do to keep black people down and out of the game. And Breakfast Club is where Charlemagne is. So I do wonder if maybe that's more where this comes from. Um, that's interesting. So I guess I'll link this down below if you wanna watch it, and we'll see what comes up there. Interesting. Okay. Um, and then Kanye went on to tweet this New York Post article: Planned Parenthood removing Margaret Sanger's name from New York City. So Margaret Sanger is, I guess there was a period in like the 70s, 80s, even the 90s, where she became kind of a feminist icon for pushing for like what's it say here, like women's health. Like she was a big women's health advocate, right? Which I guess is, somebody might say, putting it lightly. The issue is, and as it's come up over the last like decade, is that she was a fan of eugenics, and the eugenics movement was pretty big in the early part of the 20th century, with a lot of prominent thinkers being like, oh yeah, eugenics makes sense, which is essentially the practice of like selective evolution, I guess, is a euphemistic way of putting it, to where like if you can have a society that only breeds for the most desirable traits, and that way you could have like super athletes or only the smartest people, right? So if you only have like doctors reproduce, then you're going to have doctor level people in course of your society, and et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people started getting behind that idea before it completely fell out of favor, because it's disgusting and dehumanizing and really like stupid, because it forgets the fact that how many brilliant people arise out of like bad situations, and how many completely awful people are born from like very smart and successful people. Like it has less to do with the parents, I think, more so than just the random chance of who somebody is, or God, or whatever you want to assign it. But just the idea that because two smart people or good looking people or athletic people are having kids, you're going to have more of the same, is a problematic belief, because it limits humanity in a lot of ways. So Sanger, while doing a lot for women's health, was also a believer of eugenics, and had a problematically racist background, to the point where even the work that she did to provide clinics for people, and you could make the case that, oh, she's trying to provide for like women's health across the entire country, but it doesn't take out the fact that you can't not put these actions in the context of her beliefs, which fell under eugenics and racism, right? So for a while, you had Planned Parenthood saying that we don't condone everything that she did, but she still did all this good stuff, and that's why we continue to honor her. But now, years later, it's to the point where they're just straight up admitting, like, yeah, it's a necessary and overdue step to reckon with our legacy and acknowledge Planned Parenthood's contributions to historical reproductive harm within communities of color. Margaret Sanger's concerns and advocacy for reproductive health have been clearly documented, but so too has her racist legacy. So almost feels like an extension of what we've seen with the Me Too movement, and just this idea of problematic legacy, or people that have done great work and done things eventually like being looked at in the context of where culture has, or society has moved to, and things that were not viewed as disgusting at the time are now reevaluated and seen under the morals that we currently have. And do we still want to champion someone like Margaret Sanger? Do we still want to champion someone like Harvey Weinstein, et cetera, et cetera? And what do we do with these people and their legacy and their name? You can remove the name, but does that mean you destroy everything that Planned Parenthood has done moving forward? Because as much as they're tied to abortion, they're also like the first step for a lot of just women's health education and prevention and tests and screenings. Like, there's a lot more to what Planned Parenthood does. And the same thing with like Harvey Weinstein. Do you get rid of all of his movies? Do you remove all Kevin Spacey movies because Kevin Spacey ended up being a monster? It's a big conversation, and one that still going to be having in society, and not just within Hollywood and entertainment, but within a lot of these fields. Like, I feel like Henry Ford is going to be another one where like Henry Ford was horribly racist, but yet he did all of these great things for automobiles and manufacturing. So at what point do we re-examine that? Do you still have awards named after Henry Ford? Does Ford change its name? All these questions that I'm not saying I have the answers for. It's just going to be something that people continue to talk about moving forward. But this definitely falls under one of the concerns that Kanye has now, with just looking at abortion and the legacy of abortion, and specifically Planned Parenthood. And then his last tweet was over 22,500,000 black babies have been aborted over the past 50 years, which is a staggering number. I started looking up just broader abortion statistics just to get a sense, because when you see a number that huge, it just makes you go like, wow, like I've never really thought about the whole number. And since 1970, and I think abortion became legal in 1973, really, you can see that there's like kind of a big jump. And it's been about 50 years since that time, or has been 50 years. You can see that the numbers really like shot up throughout the 80s and 90s as it became more socially acceptable to do this and more resources were available. And then it's fallen over the last 20 years, which I'm probably thinking has to do more with just people practicing safe sex a bit more, like other forms of prevention, and just people feeling that they're in a better position to have kids. But you can see that the rate has fallen by more than half from its peak over the last number of years, which I think, regardless of your stance, it's just good to see that either women don't feel like they're in the situation where they have to get an abortion as often, which I think no matter where you stand on the topic of abortion is a good thing either way. So there's that, which I wasn't able to find any specific statistics more than this. Like, I couldn't even find like a total, like just give me the total number of abortions that have happened from like a government source or just like a source. It was all these like pro-life websites that had done total numbers and figures, which interesting. But I guess that's all that I have. To put it in context, I do think I don't know if this is going to be a main theme of Donda the album, but it does seem that this might be something that's on Kanye's mind. I mean, the subtitle of the album was Donda with Child, which has that sense of when she was pregnant. And with Kanye talking about how she had fought for him rather than getting an abortion, it just seems like this is a subject that is on Kanye's mind. And how much will it play into the actual content of the album? I'm not sure, but it's at least fueling a lot of what it seems is the energy going into the album. So we'll see what follows and any updates with Donda. I'm going to do a Donda update video following this, so check back for that. And now let's get into the ending spiel. If you want to help the channel, the easiest way is liking, subscribing, and commenting. All those things tell YouTube that this is a channel people enjoy, and they show it to more people. The thing that we're most well known for is our line-by-line lyrical analysis of Kanye's discography. We've done everything except Watch the Throne and Cruel Summer. So if you want to have newfound understanding or appreciation for a specific song or a specific album, all of that is available on Patreon for $5 a month. Just patreon.com/Kanye podcast. And our Jesus is King season is still broadly and widely available for free anywhere that you listen to podcasts, even on our YouTube channel. And then if you want to help my literary career, my second book just came out, and there'll be a link down below to that. Killer Unconquered is the name, and it's a weird but interesting book, and It'd mean a lot if you bought it, but you don't have to. We'll be back with more Kanye discussion next time. And until then, stay wavy and keep it loopy. Cheers.